Welcome to Elevate Your Ride, the podcast dedicated to elevating your performance in the saddle. I'm Ellie, your personal trainer.
And I'm Lauren, your mindset coach.
All right, so today we are interviewing Lila Owens. Lila was recently crowned the all around high point winner for the amateur division at the APHA World Show. She won the amateur showmanship, the amateur trail, the non pro trail sweepstakes. She was reserve in the amateur senior pleasure. And her horse also won the senior trail and the senior western riding with her trainer, Sarah Simons. So, we're bringing Lila on today to talk about her successes at the show and how she achieved those goals. Lila, first of all, congratulations on an incredible world show. I bet you feel on top of the world.
Yes, definitely. Well, thank you, one, for having me on, and two, yes, it's kind of all finally sunken in. We've had some time to kind of sit on it, and when photos kind of came in and kind of reminded me of how incredible the show was in and of itself.
Yeah. So, let's start from the beginning. How did you prepare for this year's world show?
This year's world show, I kind of went into it as a different mindset, I think, than probably in the years prior with Sarah. I think I've only been with Sarah for about 3 years. So going into the first world show and second world show, we were obviously still a newer team with her, and we were still figuring out some kinks. We still had great success, but going into this world show, instead of focusing on anything specific or let's say the all around or anything, I really focused on going in and doing what me and my horse know together and really focusing on each class by itself, not thinking of the whole grand scheme of things and kind of slowing it down and really going in and trying to perfect the craft as much as we could.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's a perfect way to get started for going to the World Show. How did you change your thought process between the past couple years and now?
I think in the past and when I moved to Sarah, I had a lot of pressure. I obviously had shown in the industry, the paint industry, for a while, and I knew that I probably put more pressure on myself than there really was, but I knew there were eyes on me because I was going over to a new trainer, and we had success in the past, but people were kind of waiting to see what we would be able to accomplish under a new trainer, and I think when I moved to Sarah about 3 years ago, it was funny, I only had 3 months under my belt, I think, going into my first world show with her, so we prepped as much as we could with how much she knew me and how much she knew my animal, and I think leaving that last practice before we packed up and headed down to Fort Worth, I remember saying, "I think we're okay, I think we'll be able to figure this out, and I think you have a really good shot at the all-around," and I remember I tried not to let my face tell the story, but I did well in the past years, but I always saw the girls win the all around, and I knew how much pressure that was and how many classes and how much success that really meant to get there, and there were classes and some years that I did really well in and some that I made major penalties in that didn't get me back to even the finals, so I remember obviously being honored that she said that, but kind of not being as confident maybe in myself and my horse as much as she was. So that first year we were, I think, top 5 in all of my amateur classes, which led me out on top, but there was never a a big win or anything like that. That was just kind of being consistent in my classes. And then going into my second year with her, obviously I kind of had the pressure of, oh, I kind of have to uphold this again. I have to go out and do well again. So my second year, obviously, I had the all around in the back of my head, but this year I definitely kind of focused on the wins and maybe even the rides and goes that I knew that me and my horse were capable instead of the all around grand scheme of things for sure.
Which mindset do you feel you enjoyed the process of? Trying to be steady Eddie and consistent and win the all around, or focus in like this year and try to get those wins and perfect each ride? And it worked out. You still were able to win the all around, which is amazing. Which process did you enjoy and why?
I think the steady Eddie and the good ride, that gave me the confidence that I could do it, but this year definitely was my favorite year because I knew how I had to prepare my horse and I. I knew the team that I had behind me. I knew the processes and procedures going into each class, from down to how much we lunge before class or what I did to stay as even keel as I could without worrying too much, and how much I should practice without overdoing it. And I feel like over the last 3 years, we really kind of developed as a team, including Sarah's assistant trainer, Sarah, myself, everyone involved. I think we've kind of found a plan that works for each class, and we know how to set it all up, and we know how to be our best. And it's kind of just following the rule book. And I really like how, not perfect, but how we can prepare our best selves to go out there and win. And I think that's been really enjoyable for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. It sounds like having the steady Eddie at the very beginning probably helped you to establish that perfect plan and, like you said, rule book of knowing what he needs and what you need. So then now you can elevate it to the highest level and get those wins.
Yeah, I think in my book, and definitely in my animals book, for me to stay as calm as possible and kind of just follow what I need to do and practice and prepare the way. And then, of course, I have kind of an old soul horse. He likes to be rewarded. He doesn't like to overdo things. That's where things start to go wrong. So we kind of know what we have to do, and we try to follow that. It's funny, before we were going into the showmanship this year, my horse, he can kind of get a little dull in the showmanship. He comes out pretty good and fresh and ready to back and ready to spin and do all the things up to the standard that we'd expect. But if you do too much, he gets a little dull. Starts dragging a little bit. I start kind of pulling him along in the trots and everything like that. But I went and practiced hard for about 3 or 4 days leading up to the showmanship. And that morning, I was practicing probably as hard as I did the days leading up to it. And things started to go wrong in the practice pen. And Sarah was out there with me, and I'm getting frustrated. And she can see mistakes that we're starting to make were not normal for us. And she literally looked at me and she goes, "Lila, calm down. You never do this. We never practice this much the day before showmanship class. You know what you're doing. Get to a good spot, and I think we're good." And I think that in that moment, it was kinda eye-opening, and I needed someone there because that's when my mind and how much I knew I could do it, but where I went kind of started to go overboard or wanted to make it all perfect. And she's like, "You have this. You're good. Marshall's gonna do what you need him to do. Don't overthink it. You do this every day," kinda thing. And that was so helpful for sure.
Do you think that part of what caused that sort of stress there, was it when you got to the world show and you see the stands and you see everybody else there competing and you see your competition working really hard? Like, do you think it was just the environment of, "Oh shit, I'm here," that kind of caused that sort of panic before your class?
Yeah, for sure. I knew that showmanship is something that my horse is really good at, and usually the classes that your horse is very good at, you put even that extra pressure on yourself to almost show up for them or make it as perfect as you can do. And in the past couple of years, I've done well in the showmanship. I think I've been top 5 for the last couple of years, but I've never clinched a title. I was reserve a couple of years ago in the level 1 at APHA World, and I was able to put up the pattern I needed there to get that. But over at the Paint World, I wasn't able to, in the past couple of years, come out on top or be where I wanted. So I put that extra pressure on myself because I knew the horse could do it. I could do it. I needed to be able to go in there, and where my brain went, overdo it, over practice, and kind of get anxious, when really I just needed to just go in, focus on the pattern, and focus on what we knew how to do all along.
Are you able to take that mentality of quote unquote do less and be okay with where you and your horse are in your other classes, and showmanship you just kind of want so bad? Or how does this pertain to your other classes that you do?
The showmanship, thankfully, was our second class going into it. So when that kind of worked, I think it calmed my nerves. Obviously, that mindset and the calm and go for it, you know what you're doing mentality is obviously something that's always, when it has worked, it's worked for me. But I kind of realized that trust myself and trust my horse. And showmanship was the second class I think I did there. And I was able to maintain through the rest of the show that to be confident and know that at the end of the day, whatever happens in the show pen is gonna happen, but you know what you're doing. We do this every single day, and we have to trust ourselves more in the show pen, in my opinion. And obviously, I say that, I think, at the equestrians as a whole, but for me especially, I know that firsthand.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like once you can get that win, especially one that you want really bad, like that showmanship, the rest almost just comes to you naturally and it kind of makes it so you can have a dream show. If you can just get that one out of the way and then you can just say, okay, it doesn't really matter. I am who I am and I'm confident in it and it just happens. So that's so cool.
I feel like all the great successes I've had over the years, it's not the classes I'm going out and focusing on the win necessarily. It's the ones that I'm just going in and riding my horse or enjoying the time instead of making it such a stressful thing.
Are you looking for that extra competitive edge, struggling with show pen anxiety, or looking to set and achieve meaningful goals with your horse? Schedule a session with me, Lauren, your dedicated mindset coach. As an experienced competitor, I understand the mental demands required to excel at the highest level, and I'm here to support you in building a plan to help you stay accountable and reaching those goals. For more information, check out laurencervelli.com or click on the website link in our show notes. Let's work together to elevate your ride.
What do you think set yourself up for success to win this year as opposed to years in the past where you've been top 5, like, you've been close, but what pushed you over the edge, do you think, to finally get that win this year?
I think my trust in myself and my trust in my trainer, and then also the trust my trainer has in myself and the trust my horse has in me. I think what makes our barn great is I think all of us know how we have to work together, whether it's in the morning of the show of us just all helping and making sure no one is overwhelmed or has too much on their plate, or the night before when I leave the barn and I have a class the next day, right before I leave, Sarah looks at me and she goes, "What do you need from me tomorrow morning?" And I think there's so much open communication in this barn, and especially with Sarah and I. We obviously both ride Marshall and know him, and she kind of trusts me before going into my classes, the calls that I need to do, or how I think I need him prepared for a certain class to do well, or vice versa. I think I feel more comfortable in the barn now. It's my home barn, but in the past, I was still kind of a newbie. And I think this year I came in and this is my barn and we all work together and my trainer knows me and trusts me. And we all just kind of had a plan together and we are able to make it all work together.
Tell us a little bit about your horse.
My horse is named Marshall. I got him when he was a 2-year-old. He's 8 now, so I've had him about 6 years. He is just the goodest boy. I cannot say enough about this animal. When I got him, it was funny. I was at Georgia. I'd been looking for a horse for a while, and I kind of knew I wanted to get a younger one, knowing that my last 2 years at Georgia, I was really going to be fully into team stuff. And I wanted a younger horse that if I had time to get away and we didn't have a meet, I could go show the pleasure in or do something low key. And when I kind of got out of school, I would be able to start all around stuff. And that's exactly what he was. But he learns fast and all around things came faster than even a normal horse. And right away, he's just a teammate, and he knows what it means to be a show horse. I joke around, and when you pull him out of the stall at a show, he knows his job when he walks into the arena. Majority of the time, it's for a good reason, but he knows why we're in there, and he knows it's to show, and yeah, he's the ultimate teammate in my opinion, and most of the time, unfortunately, if something goes wrong in the pen, it's definitely not Marshall's fault, and I've learned over the years to accept that, and that's okay with me.
So tell us about your winning run.
The trail and showmanship are 2 classes I've learned to absolutely love. My horse enjoys them as well. For the showmanship, it's funny, I went in and the days prior, we were running it in the Watt Arena, which is over obviously at the Will Rogers, and it is actually used normally as a cutting pen. And it was running up mountains and valleys there for a couple of days, every single day going up there. And one thing Sarah kind of harps on is your setup has to be in 2 steps or less. And really, that's what can set you apart. Some people can have good patterns with you, but that is something that is fully in your control in the showmanship. So I took him over one day, even without her. I was just going to set up a million times. And I brought him over and he was setting up perfectly and placing his foot where I wanted it. But when he put his weight down, it would slide forward. The dirt was so deep. And I remember being,
Wow.
oh my Lord, this is not even something I can control at this point. And actually the day we ran the showmanship, they drug every 10 goes. They didn't just pull a race over it. They fully tractor drug the whole arena. And that definitely helped, and it was a lot better, but the mentality when I was going in, honestly, at first was don't fall on your face, stay out of Marshall's way, and do what you know how to do, but that first run in, honestly, I think I was so focused. You went from a trot in to a square corner, and that first square corner, I wasn't in my head thinking about what I needed to, and it wasn't horrible, but it definitely wasn't as sharp as I could have made it, and I remember coming out of that turn and going to the next 2 square corners, I was like, "You're not gonna wanna face Sarah or anyone outside if you don't pull it together. This is the world show." And I think I gave myself whiplash going to the next 2 square corners, but after that, he was fully with me for the showmanship. He moved off my body. It was a pattern that you really had to have your horse moving with you, and there's one part of the pattern where you trotted an arc and then you came down to an extended walk, and I knew that obviously had to be fluid, and then you had to do a hip stop by the judge and set, and going into it, I know my horse learns patterns, and that the showmanship is probably one class that I kind of allow him to know certain parts of it to help me out. Obviously, the trail, when he decides it's his own journey, I don't love it as so much, but I did that trot arc to the walk to the setup a couple times the day before, and he kind of knew it was coming, but he was right there with me. And when I pulled him into my setup, I was able to stop him with his back feet in line, and all I had to do was move one front foot for the setup. So he just was really listening to my body, and he knew what was going on, and I just kinda got to show it off, quite honestly.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The paint world especially, but all world show patterns, there's always so much running and extended trot. So did you do anything different to prepare for that?
I tried to get in that deep pen as much as I could leading up to it. Outside of the show world, I definitely, stayed working out up until the show for sure, but I tried to get in that pen and get as comfortable in that pen as I possibly could, knowing that it could get ugly and I might need to smile through difficult steps, even through a spin.
How did you prepare? Like, what do you typically do for your workouts? Like, how did you prepare for all the running that you knew you were gonna need to do?
I actually am very into Pure Barre. I have a neck injury actually from horseback riding. And back in the day, I did a lot of running and I did a lot of lifting, but I've found that some of those kind of aren't great for my neck and really kind of hurt me. One of my good friends actually from Georgia, she rode horses as well, and she had some tailbone and back issues, and she's like, "Lila, you have to try Pure Barre." And I was like, "I'm not a ballerina, Grayson. I'm not necessarily built like a ballerina either." I'm like, "Are you sure you're not setting me up for failure?" But it's something I really enjoy, and it helps my balance, and there's cardio classes in there, so that definitely helps, but it's a lot of strength work through your seat and your core and your legs, and it's something that I definitely think has improved my riding.
That sounds so interesting.
It's definitely entirely what you, like, think it is. At first, I was like, "I am not gonna be good at anything based in ballet," and there's a reason I was never a dancer, but it's a really neat class, and I swear by it helping with horseback riding.
How long have you been doing that?
I've been doing it for a couple of years. When I got out of college, I rode on the equestrian team at Georgia, and we were in the gym every morning at 6 a.m., and we shared a strength coach my last couple of years with the men's basketball team. So those couple years, we really were in the gym lifting weights, doing that kind of thing, maybe to prepare us for a basketball game. But I wanted to continue that after school. I didn't want to kind of fall off the wagon, but I tried to keep that up. And honestly, my body started to say no. And Grayson said, try Pure Bar. And I've absolutely loved it.
I've done a bar class before, it's been a couple years, but it totally kicked my butt. They are not for the weak. They're extremely challenging, and I actually think they translate over pretty well to riding because it's not super high intensity and it's focused on full body. I actually really like bar classes. I think they're great for equestrians.
Yeah.
And especially, like you said, it works on the stability, and I know when Ellie and I
Yes.
together, she's very focused on stability, and that's been a big game changer for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you don't have that stability base, then good luck.
Yeah, it's funny, I tell people at work, and then I'm, like, falling over in Pure Barre, and I'm like, "Ah, it doesn't coordinate perfectly."
Right?
I know that.
Yeah.
Well,
It is a little bit different. So you do that to physically prepare yourself for showing and for the world show and everything. What do you typically do for your mind to prepare for horse shows?
I am and this has only happened probably in the last couple of years, but when I'm at horse shows and preparing, I kind of mentally go all in. My friends laugh at me and they know I'm getting ready for a horse show or they know I'm at a horse show. My bestest friends will tell you that I'm kind of untouchable, and that's just something I can do to really hone in on getting to the show, getting all set up. I'm kind of OCD. I like to have all my stuff set up and perfectly clean, and I like to feel good going into the show. So I really kind of base the world out. I do what I have to do and do my work, but kind of the outside world and 26 years old. And I try to weed out all the 26-year-old life besides the work that I have to do at the horse show and obviously my job too. But I like really focused on what I'm doing and why I'm there. Obviously, horseback riding is not for the weak, and obviously, we spend a lot of time and money and effort for these successes, so I think it's really important to really be focused.
So we've talked about your showmanship run. Tell us about your trail run, how you prepared for it, how the class went, all that stuff.
So, trail has never been my favorite class. It's definitely turned into one of my favorite classes, but I think just the pressure of if you mess up, it's nothing you can really, pretend didn't happen. The loud bangs really give you away sometimes. I watch Sarah and I try to mimic as much as I possibly can. I know that's almost impossible, but I've tried to take in as much as I can from her and going into that pattern. We were kind of all talking about it. The paint world likes to throw patterns at you that don't necessarily make sense all the way in the trail. And that's not a bad thing, but it's definitely different. I feel like in the quarter horse industry, you go into a pattern and the patterns all make sense and one obstacle leads to the other and you're never kind of on the wrong lead. And this pattern definitely had some interesting parts of it. There was extended low bowers, which not aren't necessarily completely rare, but there was also up against the wall where you should be on your left lead, you're on your right. So I think the paint world kind of challenges you. Obviously, we jack everything up in the quarter industry, but I think in the paint world, they kind of throw funky things at you instead of just throwing everything to the die. They also are like, go down this line of 8 poles in a row against the rail where you should be on the left lead, go up on your right from an extended trot. And you had to piece it up and really focus one obstacle to another. And he was really good for me. I think Sarah is obviously a lot taller than me. And honestly, my trainer that I had before was also a lot taller than me. So they were always able to keep their legs around Marshall and help him stay a little steady over the poles and keep him better in his neck. And that's something I've struggled with. I'm only 5'2", and my past 2 trainers, including the one I have now, are 5'11", beautiful women, but it's different when I'm riding versus when they are, and this year I really focus on being guidey, hold him through his neck, make everything flow well, put him in the spots that I need to do, and kinda show it off and be good and push the things that you can and be conservative where you have to be to avoid the penalties.
Tell us about your pattern that you had.
The pattern started off, with a jog serpentine, and then you went into a right lead, and then there was a random pull. You kind of did off 2 straight. There was a random pull on the right, and then you went in and you loped into a uh, side path obstacle, and you had to stop in between what looks like low pulls. And we practiced that a lot at home. Sarah says to help them pick up their feet, you lope them a lot into poles, and in the middle, just randomly stop and get them to really be focused on your feet. So we did that a lot, and he was really good there, came right back to me. Side pass, he went over some jog obstacles, and there was a cone. And in the past couple of years, Sarah, I joked with her. She was like, "You did that cone, you jogged into this, basically like I guess it was a square obstacle, but it was missing a side. And then there was a cone in the middle, and you kind of had to whip around and weave." And Sarah was like, "That was really good. You really whipped around there." And I was like, "I watched you 2 years ago when I was in your senior trail pattern. I remember being like, dang, kind of impressive." So you went into that and kind of showed that off. And then you went into your left lead. Then what was interesting and tricky about this pattern, or as for me at least, that there was a left lead wheel. You came out of the regular left lead, and then you went straight into another couple poles at the extended lope. But how they had it set outside in the practice pen, there and I kind of figured out how we can make it work. I have a pretty small strided horse, but there is a go button in there. But how they set it outside, I remember it was kind of holding back for 3 strides in that space, keep them slow, and then really just go and you'll get 5. But out there, it didn't work in my favor. And I remember looking down at the ground, I said, "With the speed I have right now, and I'm about to collaborate this if I don't go for into this set of poles right now." And thankfully, Marshall has a go button, and I pushed him into those poles and kind of missed my striding a little bit. But when I said go, he went, and we played it off like nothing happened. But in the video, you can see I was like, no one can necessarily get mad at me. It was an extended lope maneuver. So it just really looked like I was going for it. But the striding in the pen was a lot different than it was outside. And we kind of had a solidified plan. And it was an example of where I had to trust my animal and trust my instinct and know that in other circumstances out in the pen, if it wasn't a scored maneuver, if I said go to him, he would go. And I had to trust that in the pen. And within probably 0.5 seconds, I had to decide that's what I was going to do. And I trusted it. And he came right back to me after that. But we went into that extended lope pretty hot in what I felt like. But you watch it, it's nothing too crazy. But we definitely reached, and he was there for me.
Were you surprised that you won?
Yeah, so I think there was about, I think I had like 2 ticks. I knew that it was probably one of the best patterns he's ever gone through with me. I've had clean patterns with him, don't get me wrong, but I think this one was one that we were fully together as a team. He was down, he was listening, he was in between my legs, he wasn't getting busy with his neck. He was really fully listening. So it wasn't clean by any means, but I think where we were able to plus things, we took advantage of that. And I think that kind of helped me knock out those couple penalties that we did have. And I wasn't necessarily going into when they were doing awards thinking I won it, but I knew that I had a chance to do well. I don't think I ever really try to go in with the mentality that this is mine, I have it. I try to kind of stay calm and humble myself because I don't know, maybe it helps my brain. I wouldn't want to be too disappointed. So I try to kind of just think that, okay, that was good and we'll see how it goes. And I was very happy that day, and it worked in my favor.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Hi, everyone. It's your personal trainer, Ellie. If you're looking to become a stronger, more balanced, and flexible rider, I'm here to help. I offer virtual personal training sessions and customized workout plans that you can complete on your own. As a fellow competitor, I understand the physical demands riding requires, and my goal is to help you perform your best for your horse, whether you're preparing for a show or just want to improve your everyday rides. Visit lopindowntherailfitness.com or click on my website tab in the notes of this podcast episode to learn more. Let's work together to elevate your ride. Tell us about how it felt to be the last one standing and when they called your name.
I think that's what we all dream about when we do this. I think you always hear from equestrians, no matter what industry they're running, they want to be the last one on the wall and they want that gratification of the world title. And I think that's so important. I think when you get them, you feel like you're on cloud nine. And I think it still honestly hasn't even hit me the things that I've been able to do in 3 years from where I started at the paint world to now where I am today and what I've been able to do in that industry. I think you start to appreciate the craft of it and the work and the partnership you can have with your horse and your trainer more when I think it's really important to think about your goals. And I'm not even saying that's just to win a title or go out there. I think it should be more go out and obviously have a good ride and get better every time and trust yourself and trust your horse. But it was amazing to be the last one on the wall. But I think that I always say sometimes I'm on the wall and I look back, I'm like, can we just leave now? Like I felt pretty good about that. Like I don't need a plaything. We're good. Not because I don't want to be placed at all, just because like I know when I do well or I'm happy with my go. Obviously, judges' opinions when they work in your favor are very nice outside applauses for you, but I think sometimes that I get a little I think probably from my past, I was so always focused on wanting to be the last one standing and all that, and it's funny because now almost when I've had those opportunities, I'm more grateful for the rides and everything than any prize that I could have ever gotten from it.
You said that so well. I totally agree.
I think back when I wasn't as successful or I could have never pull off the win or things like that, I think that's when I wanted the win more than anything, and I don't know if that sounds backwards or anything, but I think now that I've gotten to where I feel pretty good about it and my horse and what we're able to put up, I think I and thinking, like, where I came from more than anything, like, there and I will always go to the paint world, I think it's kinda what built me. I did the quarters in the beginning of my life, and then I rode in the paint for those years leading up to college, and that's kind of what I did for the local stuff, and the first 4 years I had Marshall, we did the Congress and random shows for the quarters, but I really built myself in the paint industry, and I absolutely love showing the quarters now, but I think Sarah and I said it leaving this world show, we said the paint world has just been being able to show my milestones and how far we've come because 3 years ago, I was like, I hope I can do it for you. I hope we're able to pull off something. I don't know what it will be, but let's shoot in the dark and hope for something. And I think now I kind of can go into it and be like, okay, I know this is my strong suits. I know we can play in that and what to focus on and how to prepare. And I think it's now a respect in the art instead of the respect to wanting to go in and get a title for yourself.
Absolutely.
Tell us about your senior pleasure class.
My senior pleasure class is since I've had Marshall since he was 2, I remember absolutely hating to ride the 2 and 3. He hated the Bazelle, I hated the Bazelle, I honestly didn't have much experience in it, and I remember that it was just nothing I enjoyed at all. We just didn't want we deserved to be in the all-around class as a team, but now we show the pleasure, and obviously that is his background. He's by machine made. He's a little 15 hands. He's nothing big, and we go into the pleasure, and I always appreciate a good all-arounder, and I think because it's worked for me. An all-arounder that can play, even if it's sometimes in a rail class, obviously is something that can always benefit you, and some judges absolutely love Marshall, and some judges are indifferent, or some don't use him at all, and I see that kind of in every industry, but we always go in and he went in and his pleasure actually with his age has actually almost gotten stronger and I felt confident. It was definitely probably one of the best pleasure rides with him, but it was honestly at the paint world this year for the rail classes, it was slightly all over the place in some classes and there was great horses in our class and it was kind of all over the place. So I really didn't know going up to the wall. They come out and call out each judge's top 6. So even coming out of that and knowing what I was under each judge, I didn't know where I was gonna fall. It was kind of that all over the place. He was really good. I felt very confident. I walked in and I actually passed there on the rail and I was like, "Dang, now that's like probably one of the best pleasure classes he's ever given me." And she agreed, and coming off the individuals, I didn't know where I stood, and when it got to the top 3, I was like, "Oh, this is really awesome." Like, we were able to hold our own in a rail class, and we got to reserve, and I was very happy with that, and he showed for me, and I have a blast now showing him in the pleasure. It's less thoughts that I have to go. I just kinda go in and just ride the horse.
Do you think that the pleasure helps the rest of your event?
I don't know. I think almost the other events help my pleasure, if that makes sense. I think Marshall's gotten better in the pleasure as he's gotten stronger and has more self-carriage from the Western riding and the trail. I think it's almost helped his pleasure from my standpoint as someone that I like to do the all around kind of stuff. I like to showcase that the horse, he might be 15 hands, but every once in a while we can hang in the egg and we can do the showmanship. And I like showing how versatile he is. And it's something that I enjoy about him. And obviously having that pleasure reserve at the show, it was icing on the cakes. And I was obviously thrilled, but I think those rail classes for those all arounders, when they can do it, sometimes you're within a couple points of other girls that have just been doing as good as you, but sometimes those rail classes can kind of push you ahead if you have them behind you. I'm not saying you need them necessarily, but I think it's a good little nudge sometimes ahead that can set you apart, that your horse can knock back and do the pleasure. He can participate well in the pattern classes, but if you need some extra points or you think he can play at the world show, go in. You never know what can happen.
So when you know that you're kind of in the running for the all around, did that change the way that you felt or prepared or showed your next classes? What was kind of your thought process going through all that?
I think it kind of depends where you are in the ranking and how the points go. I don't love to track it all the way. I'll start tracking it probably the last day at the paint world for the last 2 years. It's been the same way. My last day is the Western riding and the pleasure. 2 years ago, when I was up for the all around, going into those 2 classes, I was pretty neck and neck with a couple girls, and like I said, pleasure can be a hit or a miss for me. Marshall's always pretty consistent, and Joe's kind of the same, but some judges like him and some judges don't, and last year, I went into that last day, but I wasn't planning to do the Western riding last year. Sarah, when she got my course, she's meticulous about the Western riding, so she kinda went back and retaught him things and was trying to get him sticking with the way she does it, and I went into that last day, and I was neck and neck with girls, and I only had the pleasure standing, and I didn't know what other girls were gonna do, and like I said last year, I think the pressure of holding the all-around title was even I think it was non-existent this year, but last year, I really felt like the pressure, and I was like, "Sarah, do you" I knew I had pleasure left, and I was already entered in that the day before, but I was like, "Sarah, do you think I could ever enter myself in the Western riding if it came down to it?" And she was like, "Yes, but I don't know what you're gonna get." And when I tell you I had never had a Western riding class with Sarah in my entire life, I had gone through Western riding patterns with Marshall when he was more green, and they were dumpster fires, quite honestly. So she was like, "Well, you could try, and, like, we don't obviously have to go for it. We can see how pleasure goes, but you had to enter the Western riding the day before." And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna just do it." And it's funny because I went in and I showed the Western pleasure, and actually I was reserved last year too. So that Western pleasure gave me the edge I needed, and I was gonna come out on top. The other girls that I was competing with weren't going into the Western riding. And Sarah looked at me and she goes, "Well, you're entered." And I'm like, "Sarah, I've never done Western riding with you. I haven't done Western riding in over a year. I think it's been like a year and a half." And she said, "Well, you're entered. We should finally, I guess, see what we got." Because she had changed so many things on him in the Western riding. And we went out there. I sent him through a couple of lines. He was being really good. And she's like, "Okay, put him up. Like, get ready. We're going to do it and see where we're at. What's it going to turn into? We don't know. If it fails, it fails. If it does well, it does well. And actually, last year I ended up winning the Western riding, the main
What?
riding at Western riding, and I don't credit any of that win last year to me. It was all Sarah and Marshall. I asked the right things at the right time, and God was on my side, I think. But in that certain circumstance, it helped to kind of have the pressure on me. Like, if you just ride how you know how to ride, it can pay off in tenfold if you just focus on like the most simple thing as riding your horse and reminding yourself you know how to ride your horse.
Yeah, that is so cool. And the things that you guys were able to accomplish just by going out there and doing it and believing in yourself, believing in the training that Sarah had put in with him, believing in your horse and just doing it. Like, that's the coolest story I've heard.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
It was really neat, and I really do credit to how meticulous Sarah is, and Marshall had been just trained by her for the last year and a half in it, and Sarah likes to put the things on the horses, and obviously we help when we're there, but Western riding and the trail, she's pretty meticulous about, and obviously that's why she's so great at it, but she wants us to be great at it too, but for that first couple months and for that year, she did it all, and I was just able to go in and show the horse.
That's really cool. I feel like a common theme for what you've talked about with Sarah is just being able to be a part of a team and everybody in the team playing an integral role. And that's what makes it run so smooth and helps to make you so successful and alleviate a lot of your stress and anxiety. And that's so cool that you've been able to find that there and feel so comfortable because you can't do it all on your own. It's a huge thing to be able to have somebody that you trust that you can rely on.
Yeah, Sarah's great. I think Sarah is a badass woman. I hope I'm able to say that, but she's hard on us, all the amateurs and all the youths, and gosh, even her selects. But she also understands when we just need support, and I think she has more people skills. I think than she even believes that she does. She knows when we need to turn it on, and she knows what she can say that can kind of get us a little spicy and make us turn up the heat. And she also knows when you just need to be confident, and she'll pat you on the leg and send you in with the compliment. You're like, "Sit there, just say that. Yeah, that's the nicest thing I've ever heard her say." But she has a way with reading people, I think. And I see it not even just with myself. I see it when she's working with the other girls. There's a fine line she walks, and she knows when to go and push ourselves to be the best we can. But she also knows when she needs to lay off and kind of just put the trust in us and send us in on a good note.
Hey, Elevate Your Ride fans. Are you loving our show and looking for a way to show your support? Check out our line of Elevate Your Ride merchandise. From stylish t shirts to cozy hoodies to journals and hats, we have everything you need to represent your favorite podcast. Ready to gear up? Click on the Buy Our Merchandise Here link in the podcast notes, or head on over to our website, elevateyourride.co, and click on the Store tab. Thank you for your support. Make sure to like, follow, and share our platform with your friends.
What got you into horses? Why do you do it?
The horses have always been a part of my life. When I was younger, my dad got my mom riding lessons because she used to jump and do the hunters when she was younger. And it's a funny story. My dad, for a birthday or Christmas or something, got my mom lessons at a local barn, not understanding that there are different disciplines in horseback riding as well as different breeds of horses. And my mom, who used to jump and do all of that, got lessons actually with the Whitney Legacy up in Connecticut. And obviously, it was a whole different world, but it was a local barn to us. And obviously, my mom picked me up from like preschool every single day, and she was going to her lessons. So she had to have me tag along. My older sisters were in middle school and elementary school, I think, at the time. So I just got to go along for the ride. But we all kind of got into it. Next, my mom got a horse, then the horse turned into my sister's horse, and we all just turned to horses, and we were supported to do it. And next thing you know, my dad was such a loving girl dad. He built us a 4-stall post and beam barn in our backyard, and we had horses in our backyard. But my story definitely doesn't maybe correlate with a lot of riders that kind of get to this level. There was a time we moved down to Florida, and we left our horses with our show trainer at the time up in Connecticut, Michelle Carver. And I kind of needed a hobby. Horses were my life when I moved down and I was in middle school and I didn't really have anything after school with my horses being far away. And I kind of picked up soccer and I did soccer for quite some years. And that's kind of really what I was focusing on and almost wanted to even go to school for. But one day my dad said, we don't need horses up in Connecticut anymore if we're spending less time with them. We're getting older. We're having our friends during the summer instead of going up and showing. And he said we were gonna go sell CAD, and I remember being like, "No, I want CAD down here. I'll quit soccer tomorrow." And those were years that a lot of other girls in the industry were kind of going full force in the youth world and running around, really getting their name out there. And I was focused on soccer, and then even when my horse did come down to Florida, I rode every day, but I wasn't going to any of the major shows. I was really just riding horses, and I showed some, but it was nothing ever to really get my name out there. And I ended up actually going to the University of Georgia, and I rode on the equestrian team there, but I had sent videos out, but nothing too crazy. But I ended up just going to Georgia academically, and the coach at Georgia just called me up one day and said, "Come out to the barn." And I was on the team, so I think the girls on the team really is what catapulted me to even where I am today. I always looked at horses as a fun thing, and I still do, but I definitely have a more competitive edge watching all my teammates that obviously were so successful in the industry. And I was like, hey, I want to do that. So I definitely kind of went full force into it, starting at college, honestly, even more than ever it ever was.
That's a really cool story. Yeah, like you said, it's a little different than the traditional way, but I think that's probably makes you want it just so much more to come at it just from the passion of loving the horse and it evolving into the showing side.
Yeah, I did show, don't get me wrong, but it was more of the local stuff and going a state or 2 away. It definitely wasn't traveling the country like I do now, and it is neat. I say to my friends, they're like, "You ride so much and you're putting this first and all that," but I think the years that they were doing it, I was just riding in the backyard or riding at the barn and showing some, but definitely not making it to the level that those girls were. And I think my love and passion for horses has only grown. I've only become more of a horse girl. I've always loved it, but now it's almost more than ever.
Yeah, that's so cool. Tell us a little bit more about your time on the equestrian team. How was the athletic side as well as the competition with the horses?
I loved the equestrian team at Georgia. Like I said, I kind of had a different entry onto the team. Even to add to the story, I agreed to go to Georgia. I love Georgia. And I was actually in an auditorium for new students when I had a random number from Athens calling me. And I looked at my mom. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I literally just came into Georgia. Why am I in trouble? Who is already calling me? And she's like, I think you should go take it outside. Like it could be like a guidance counselor or someone helping me with my class to just go outside. And I swear it was Coach Laura from Georgia. She's at OSU now, but she was like, "Hey, Lila, I was just calling to see like where you ended up at school. I'd seen your video a while ago that you sent me, but I didn't know if you actually decided to ride for anywhere or what your plans were." And it was basically fate, I guess, at that point. I remember being like, well, I'm in Athens right now. I'm going to Georgia. And no, I did not decide that I wanted to really ride anywhere. And had a flight the next day out of Atlanta, and my mom was with me, and that drive to Atlanta can be a little tough, but I think our flight was, like, at 11 a.m., and she's like, "I'll meet you there at 6 a.m. tomorrow at the barn." And I think I walked away kind of knowing that I was gonna go to the team meetings and go to the tryouts and see if I can make it. And so I had a little different entry coming onto the team. Obviously, I didn't know or decide to go to Georgia because of the team. Yes, obviously, it was an added perk after it all happened, but I think the team dynamic almost or all that it entailed definitely took more than I really thought. I thought I was just going into college and obviously going to school, but thinking regular student activities and being a regular student. But right away. It was like we got there and you have team meetings, you have mandatory tutoring your first year, you have all your practices every single day, you have the workouts. They take you in right away as a freshman. But for me, it was in kind of enlightening. A lot of the other girls on the team exactly knew what they were walking into and why they were going to Georgia to represent them. And I kind of just thought it was going to be a fun add-on activity. And it definitely took me some time adjusting, but for sure the team was one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I'm actually going on a bachelorette trip tomorrow for my best friend that I met on the team. The relationships you get from the team, in my opinion, will last forever. And the riding experiences, the girls that you get to look up to and watch every day, the bonding, what you can learn from those girls that kind of come from all different facets of lives and all trainers and all the horses backgrounds. You can learn so much. And I think that's kind of coming from an outsider coming in and kind of riding with all these girls that competed at all these levels. I knew who they were. And I think I spent those first 2 years watching everything top riders were doing and trying to mimic that myself just to get better and watching, and almost even took advantage of all the scribing opportunities that I had my first year coming in, and really learning how to scribe and what penalties were and meant and what kind of mess ups you can have or how to fix things when things go wrong. And I think I still use that all to this day in the industry. It definitely prepared me for what I do now.
Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. Find us on Instagram and Facebook, all linked in the podcast notes. We'll see you next time. The information provided by Elevate Your Ride is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or professional advice. While we discuss health and fitness topics related to equestrians, the content provided through this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. The views expressed by the host and guests on Elevate Your Ride are their own and should not be taken as professional guidance. We strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, but we cannot guarantee that the information will be applicable to every individual listener or that it reflects the most current research or guidelines. Before making any changes to your health and fitness routine, we strongly recommend consulting with a qualified professional who can provide personalized advice based on your individual needs and circumstances. Elevate Your Ride and its creators will not be liable for any direct, indirect, consequential, special, exemplary, or other damages arising from the use of information on this podcast. Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. We are committed to providing high quality content and appreciate your trust in us as a source of information for your health and fitness journey.